Hi everyone, I'm Jonathan Shaw, creator of the DTO system and founder of the DTO Academy. And in this video, we're going to talk about memories and traumas, how they affect our lives, how they get created, and why they're such a problem, and why we're not taught they're a problem, because we're just not taught that these days. There's a lot of people out there who do similar things to what I do teach it, but we're not taught that in mainstream. Why and how our negative memories and traumas affect us. So in my last video, I went through the three things that cause our problems, that cause all of our problems, which was negative memories and traumas, triggers, and behaviors. If you haven't seen that video, go back and watch that video. It's a very cool video and explain the cause of all of our problems. But right now, today, we're going to look into the memories and the traumas. How does this happen? Why do they cause us so many problems? The first thing is that our brain is like a giant computer and it remembers literally everything. Even though we may not remember everything, our brain stores every piece of information that comes in. Now, I don't know whether you guys have seen the movie Inside Out. It was a great movie. It was an animation, and I think it was by Pixar or Disney. I don't know who it was by. I can't remember. If you haven't seen it, go and see it. It's brilliant. It explains that when you have a memory, what happens is the memory is like a marble, comes in, and depending on your perception of the memory, whether you perceive it as a good memory or a bad memory or a core memory, if your brain's not interested in it, it'll drop it into the chasm. It'll drop it below and it'll just disappear. It won't bother you. But if you think it's important, if you think it's something you should remember, it'll take it up into your core memories and it will store it there. Whether it's good or bad, if it thinks it's important, it will store it in your core memories. Now, this is a problem because if it's a bad memory, it will still store it there, even though it doesn't need to be stored there. So that memory is staying in your brain and gets played in your brain over and over and over again and will get triggered off at different times. Let me give you some examples of negative memories. So, simple negative memories can be something as being told off as a child that you didn't get a good enough grade by your parents. It could be being bullied at school, being teased. It could be something as simple as being told off in school because you're not doing your homework or you're not getting a good grade. It could be something a bit more traumatic, like moving home and moving away from your friends. So one of my clients, he was triggered. He was about 10 years old. He had headaches, and one of his triggers was schoolwork. It was the pressure of doing schoolwork, the pressure of keeping up with exams, the pressure that the teachers were putting on them to do their exams and to get good grades. Another typical example is someone I treated many years later, but when he was a child, he kept moving home. He must have moved home like 5 or 6 times, and he couldn't keep he couldn't make friends because he kept moving all the time. And what this did was this left him with an alone feeling. It left him with an isolated feeling, like he was on the outside, and he couldn't connect to people very easily. So he was all in his head. He was very logical, and he couldn't really connect emotionally to people because he blocked that off because he kept losing his friends. Another example might be someone whose parents have split up. One of my clients, she remembered her mum and dad arguing all the time, and she also remembered how her mum and dad used to treat her when she was younger. So they treated her like she wasn't very important, like she didn't mean anything to them because they were going through their issues. She was put off to the side. She was sent to her bedroom. They didn't listen to her. They didn't hear her. They abused her emotionally because of the way they were speaking to her and treating her. So later on, she had years of depression, anxiety because of the way her mum and dad were around her, and because their relationship, the mum and dad's relationship, was so bad. And this affected her through her whole life until a few years back when we switched it all off and her depression and anxiety went away. That was part of what was causing it. And it stopped her in relationships as well because those memories created belief systems about life and relationships. So it stopped her in her current relationships, in the relationship she was trying to have, whether it was with her family or with her partner or with people generally. So that's an example of how memories really affect us, and they just stay stored in the brain. Now, you may think what we often think is that, oh, the memory's gone. And one of the myths is that time is a great healer. What a load of bollocks. That does not happen at all. All time does is make your brain forget. And your brain doesn't really forget, just your conscious brain forgets. So the front of your brain, your conscious brain, that forgets, but it's still stored in the back. It still plays and gets triggered off. So that belief or that myth that time is a great healer doesn't work because I've worked with people who are holding on to traumas 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago and they're still clinging to them. They just didn't realize they were. It wasn't till they thought of the actual memory, put themselves back there, that all the emotion comes up, all the thoughts, all the beliefs, once you put yourself into it, it comes up to your conscious brain. And that means it's still running in your system. So you might be saying, well, why would you want to put yourself back there? Well, you need to put yourself back there to switch it off, to bring the emotion up, to bring it up so you can switch it off completely. Just because you're not thinking about it on a day-to-day basis doesn't mean it's not affecting you. It is. It's constantly playing in your unconscious mind. It's constantly being triggered off in your environment, and you're constantly behaving in certain ways that you don't realize based on that memory. So it's really important to switch those memories off because they literally control our world. You know, one of my clients, he was a contractor, and he was going to give the contract, and he said every time I go and give a contract, they want to knock me down on the price. It's not fair. And that's because he went in with a belief that he was greedy. Now, that belief came from a memory when he was a child. Uh, so, what happened was every time he went into that meeting, unconsciously, he's believing he's greedy. Now, all beliefs come from memories and traumas. Whenever memory or trauma, we create a belief either about ourselves or the outside world or people, and then that belief stays with us. And then when we are in our environment, that belief can often be backed up again in future environments, and we can often go, oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's true. See, I told you that was right. Like lying, for instance. If we was around someone who was younger, if say our dad lied all the time, and we were always seeing they were lying, and they never admitted they were lying, but we knew they were lying, and we hated that. As we get older, when we will just encounter people who lie because we have that running in our system. That's how that works. If you have something happen in the past, you're going to draw it to you time and time again until you resolve that belief. Because there's other people out there who don't have a problem with someone who lies. If someone lies, they just stay away from that person. They wouldn't go near them again once they recognize it. But someone who hates lying, who's fed up with lying, will just keep drawing it to them over and over and over again because they're still running the belief systems that people lie, or the belief that they're a good person. They would never do that. And in the case of lying, we've all done that from time to time. So that's not really strictly accurate. So memories and traumas can get lodged in our brain, and they create belief systems that then run our lives. And as we go through life, it then shows up in our environment, and we keep recreating the same thing over and over again. So I hope that makes sense how those memories and those beliefs stay stuck. One of my clients, another very quite severe example, she came to me with neck and shoulder pain, and it only just come on, and she was in her mid 40s, not very old, and she was having severe pain. Now, she was told this was caused by the medication that she was on for something else. Now, this is an example of what I said in our first video, where we're told something and we believe it, and we're now blaming that, but that's not helping us, and we're now suffering fear and victim mentality. So she was told it's a medication, so she resigned herself to it because she had to take the medication for the other things she was suffering with, so she couldn't resolve the pain. And sure enough, when she went online to the forums, 50% of the women on there had the same sort of pain. Now, I know that's not how medication works. And in my 20 years' experience, that is not how medication works, except doctors don't know that. So, what I said was put that belief aside for a second. I said, how does it make you feel to have that pain? I said, oh, I'd be able to take that medication. How does it make you feel to take the medication? Oh, I hate it. Never want to take medication at all. So it was burdening her. It wasn't fair. So I switched that off, the belief about the medication, because she had a belief about medication. It wasn't good for you. It wasn't right. She wanted to be natural all the time. So I switched that belief off, and 50% of her pain went away. And then I said, okay, when did this come on, and what happened? And she said, oh, it came on about the time when my husband was very ill, my mum was very ill. Okay, great. So bear in mind, she's about 45. Her husband and mum get ill. They're fine. It wasn't a massive illness, and they're alive today, but that burdened her, and it hurt in her neck and shoulders. So I said, well, what does that remind you of? And it suddenly went back, all the way back to when she was 18, to when her sister committed suicide. So, and her 2 years later, her dad passed away. So her husband and her mum being ill remind her of the time when her sister was very ill, clearly, and her dad was ill, and they both died. They passed away, and that was locked in her neck and shoulders, and it got triggered off when her husband and her mum got ill as well. Now, that's a really extreme example, and I see that all the time. That's not a minor thing, that's quite a tragic thing to happen, but that's an example of how it works. It works exactly like that. You have a trauma in your past or a memory, and it gets triggered off later in life. And it can be anything. So, another one of my clients, she she's working through her relationship stuff, and it's triggering her past issues with her past relationships. It's triggering issues with her mum and the relationship with her mum and how her mum would feel if she got into a relationship. It's triggering the way her relationship with her father in her current relationship now that she's in. And so we're clearing through her blocks so she can hang on to a relationship, because sometimes in relationships, when we have memories or traumas from the past, what happens is it causes us to sabotage our current relationships, and it causes us to run away from relationships, or it causes us to blame the other person and get out and move on to someone else, when actually a lot of it's coming from inside of us. The other person may have blocks, but you can only deal with your blocks. So memories and traumas affect us in a huge way. I hope that makes sense. I hope you can see how the memory and trauma, because a lot of people don't get it, don't know how it affects. How can that possibly be there? It's just playing like a record player over and over again in your unconscious mind. It doesn't stop. It's not like it's digital where you can just press stop. You can't. Now with DTO, you can actually switch it off. You can actually switch, because it's just a fight and flight state. It's not a good thing. You're not meant to have the memory anymore. It's in the past. So because it's fight and flight, DTO can switch it off. But we don't know it's playing often, and we never really see how it can affect us. But as soon as I make people aware of this, for instance, one of my clients came to me with sciatic pain, and this guy was in his 60s. He was a milkman. He was in his 60s, so he didn't get what I'm talking about. He wasn't into all this mind stuff and the power of emotions and thoughts. He didn't understand that. But he came to me with sciatic pain, and he came to me 3 times, and it was gradually going away. I was gradually releasing the nerve, but on the 4th time, it had got worse. So I said to him, I said, this has got worse, and it was getting better. So what's happened? And I said, before this happened, before you got the pain, what happens? Do with your territory where you felt stuck and couldn't move forwards. And he basically said he was on his milk round, he found a mobile phone, and he didn't have the confidence to give it back, so one of his mates did it. And he watched as the people who owned the phone came down, retrieved the phone from his friend, and had a go at him for giving their phone back. I mean, that's just disgusting behaviour right there. But he was in so much shock, it affected his core values, which is why it hit his back, because he would never do that. And he couldn't move forward from it. He felt stuck because he didn't know how to respond to his friend, because he'd got his friend to give it back to them. His friend had got abuse, and he didn't know how to interact. And he hadn't seen his friend since that event. So he then trapped his sciatic nerve and felt stuck and couldn't move forwards from it. So after I treated it for a few weeks, it was getting better, and then it got worse. So I said, "Well, what's happened to do with that memory?" He said, "Oh," he said, "I saw my friend on the milk round, and he said it's okay, it's fine." He said he doesn't worry about it, don't bother him. And he was such a relief. That's when he trapped the nerve worse. So it was a relief for his friend, but he was still running all this emotion about it, all this feeling stuck and his core values being gone against. He was still running all that trauma, so he hadn't quite let go of it. Once he realised that's what it was, and that is exactly what it was, I was able to release the nerve again, and it didn't trap again, and he's fine. But that's a classic example of how simple things can affect us like that. Everyday life things. It doesn't have to be big traumas like that lady with her sister. It can be everyday life can trigger us. And that memory can be lodged from 10, 20, 30 years ago, or it can be lodged from a couple of months ago. It doesn't matter where it gets lodged or how far back it is. The fact is, it's in there somewhere. And we need to find those memories, find those traumas, and switch them off so that our body can heal, our minds can heal, and we can be healthy and happy and successful. I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand how memories and traumas affect us. If you have any questions, then type a question below and I'll be happy to answer it further. If you like the video, like and share the video if you're on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube and hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me at jonathan@thedtosystem.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have if they're personal, or if you want my help, just reach out to me at jonathan@dtosystem.com. And if you want to learn DTO yourself, then you can go to dtoacademy.com and sign up completely free and start learning the DTO system in a 7-day introductory training. It's 100% free to sign up. That training is absolutely free, and it will be free for life. And you can learn the basics of the DTO system, and you can start learning to switch off your own negative memories that are holding you back and causing you problems in your life. I hope you enjoyed that video. In the next video, I'm going to walk you through triggers and explain how triggers affect our life. But until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, keep smiling, and I'll speak to you soon.